We've seen Einstein in 1919, after the eclipse expedition, become extraordinarily famous. Suddenly, he was everywhere. On the front page of newspapers, his name was on the tip of everyone's tongue. It was the end of World War I. A new world was coming into existence, and Einstein became its symbol. But at that moment, we could ask another question. We could go back to a time, the turn of the century, when Einstein was friends with a young man, Friedrich or Fritz Adler, who came from a family in Vienna. He was very much like Einstein in certain ways. He was interested in philosophy, in Ernst Mach. He was interested in physics. He was studying at the same university as Einstein. He was interested in many of the same things. In fact, they studied together for some of their courses. They shared flats in the same building. They both married Slavic women at about the same time, and both of them had kids. They went up to the attic and would talk about the things that fascinated them from physics. And in 1908, both Einstein and Adler applied for a job there that had just come open. Adler is a Privatdozent, a kind of assistant professor, at the University of Zurich. Einstein is a clerk in the Bern Patent Office. Fritz Adler wrote his father on the 19th of June, 1908, that his competition for that job is a man named Einstein, who studied at the same time as I did. We even heard a few lectures together. Our development is seemingly parallel. He married a student at about the same time as I and his children. But no one supported him, and for a time he half starved. As a student, he was treated contemptuously by the professors. The library was often closed to him, etc. He had no understanding of how to get on with the important people. Finally, Einstein found a position in the patent office in Bern, and throughout the period he has been continuing his theoretical work in spite of all distractions. Today he is in the School of Boltzmann, and one of the most distinguished and recognized. And this school, not that of Mach, is the mode today. Ludwig Boltzmann's statistical mechanics, not Ernst Mach's sense data positivism, may have been the mode. It was definitely not the fashion Adler wore. His loyalties were to Mach, on grounds of physics, on grounds of epistemology and philosophy, on political grounds. Mach was a socialist. But Einstein's epistemic physics classification with Boltzmann, the man most famous for understanding the world in terms of real molecules, did not sway Adler for a moment from backing Einstein for the position he himself was pursuing. To the Board of Education in 1908, Fritz wrote, "If it's possible to obtain a man like Einstein for our university, it would be absurd to appoint me. I must quite frankly say that my ability as a research physicist does not bear even the slightest comparison to Einstein's. Such an opportunity to obtain a man who can benefit us so much by raising the general level of the university should not be lost because of political sympathies." The authorities were sympathetic to Adler. The Einsteins and the Adlers took up residence in the same building, 12 Mousonstrasse. Both Adler and Einstein, as I mentioned, had married Slavs, both had young children. From that building, Adler wrote his father, "We are on very good terms with Einstein, who lives above us, and as it happens, we're closer to them than any of the other academics. They run a bohemian household like our own." Their young children played together, and the two physicists retreated to the attic for discussion. "The more I talked to Einstein," Friedrich Adler added to his father, "the more I realized that my favorable opinion of him was justified. We find ourselves in agreement on questions which the majority of other physicists would not even understand," including, no doubt, a shared Machian disdain for absolute space or absolute time. Adler's high estimation of Einstein was reciprocated. By the end of 1910, most everyone knew that Einstein was to be offered a professorship at the German University of Prague. "One can now read in the professional journals about my appointment at Prague," Einstein wrote, "but I have not yet received any communication. If it really comes, then I wish that Fritz Adler would become my successor." Adler had written extensively on Mach's phenomenological approach to physics, and written some more technical papers, ones Einstein respected, on thermodynamics, bashing Ostwald's attempts to reduce all physics to energy. But Adler's succession to Einstein was not to be. With some reluctance, weighed down by financial concerns, Fritz Adler abandoned epistemology and physics for Socialist Party work in Zurich, and after 1911 went back to Vienna, his father's unsuccessful struggle to persuade him to continue his work in theory notwithstanding. Einstein and Adler remained in contact. In fact, in 1911, Fritz Adler brought Einstein to his parents' residence in Vienna, where they spent a memorable evening. In the summer of 1914, Leon Trotsky, then in exile in Vienna, visited the Socialist Workers' Party to meet with the Adlers, son and father, and recorded this. Trotsky: "In the Secretariat, I came across Friedrich Adler, or Dr. Fritz as he was called in top party circles, thin, of quite a good height, slightly stooping, with a fine brow over which his curly, shining hair fell down, and with the imprint of a perpetual thoughtfulness on his face. Fritz always stood apart, as one aside from the quite numerous Vienna party intellectuals, so ready for wise cracks and cheap anecdotes. He had spent a year and a half in Zurich as assistant professor of physics and as editor of the local party newspaper." Trotsky continued, "The young Adler, with his inimitable revolutionary temperament, disdained this old system run by his father." Victor Adler was head of the Socialist Party. But Fritz Adler's real criticism, according to Trotsky, his distrust and his hate, were directed at the Habsburg regime itself. During their last meeting on 3 August 1914, Friedrich Adler showed Trotsky the government's appeal to the population: hunt the suspicious foreigners. Trotsky again: "It was with concentrated abhorrence that he, young Adler, spoke of the rising orgy of chauvinism. But his outward restraint merely masked his profound moral shock." Then Victor Adler stepped into the Secretariat, suggesting that Trotsky immediately accompany him to the chief of the political secret police to find out what the government intended to do with Russian exiles. In the car, Trotsky gestured to the festive reaction the city had to the beginning of war. Victor responded, "All the unbalanced and all the insane are coming out on the streets. This is their day. War throws open the field to every instinct and every type of lunacy." The psychiatric Dr. Adler, according to Trotsky, viewed politics, especially Austrian politics, as a form of psychopathology. Adler apparently had the clout to get an immediate audience with the political police chief Hayek, who told the visiting revolutionary that leaving town would be an excellent idea. "Tomorrow?" Trotsky asked. "No," Hayek responded, "now." 3 hours, 10 minutes later, the Adlers had Trotsky on a train for Switzerland.